Welcome to a journey into the fascinating world of machine poetry. In recent years, computers have evolved from mere calculation tools to creative partners, capable of generating poetic texts that rival human creativity. This transformation is largely thanks to the development of neural networks, which have revolutionized how machines understand and produce language. Today, we'll explore how machine poetry emerged, how it works, and what it means for the future of literature. Let's dive into the origins and evolution of this unique blend of technology and art. At the heart of modern machine poetry lies the neural network, a computer system inspired by the human brain. These networks learn from vast collections of text, absorbing patterns, styles, and even subtle nuances of language. Unlike earlier algorithms that relied on randomness, neural networks generate poetry by systematically reproducing the style of their training samples. This means the poems they create can be surprisingly coherent, stylistically rich, and sometimes even emotionally resonant. Neural networks have truly become the creative engine powering today's computer-generated verses. The story of machine poetry began long before neural networks. In the 1950s and 60s, European pioneers experimented with computers to create poetry by randomly recombining words and phrases from existing texts. These early works, often called stochastic poems, relied heavily on chance and simple rules. As technology advanced, so did the sophistication of these poetic experiments. By the 1990s, Russian programmers created computer poems using strict classical forms, focusing on rhyme and meter. However, the concept of poetic in these early programs was quite limited compared to today's standards. Randomness played a central role in early computer poetry. Programmers would use random number generators to select words or phrases, creating unexpected and sometimes surreal combinations. This approach was seen as a way to break free from traditional poetic constraints and introduce a new kind of creativity. However, true randomness is difficult for computers to achieve, and most systems relied on pseudorandom algorithms. As neural networks emerged, the focus shifted from randomness to learning and replicating complex patterns found in human poetry. With the rise of open-source tools like TensorFlow, more programmers began experimenting with machine-generated poetry. Many turned to poetry as a testbed for their neural networks, since poems are short, culturally significant, and often available in large digital collections. Online platforms like GitHub now host dozens of projects dedicated to generating poems, with examples ranging from playful schoolbook verses to avant-garde experiments. This democratization of technology has made machine poetry accessible to a global community of creators. Interestingly, machine-generated poetry often shares structural similarities with human dialogue. Both are composed of short, self-contained statements that don't always form a continuous narrative. This makes poetry an ideal format for neural networks, which excel at producing varied and independent lines. Even when the output is grammatically odd or semantically ambiguous, it can still resemble the experimental poetry of the 20th century, where meaning is often secondary to form and feeling. The development of machine poetry has been shaped by both cultural and technical factors. For example, Chinese programmers have excelled in this field, partly because classical Chinese poetry is highly formalized, with strict rules for line length, rhyme, and tone. This makes it easier for neural networks to learn and reproduce the style. In contrast, Russian machine poetry has traditionally focused on rhyme and meter, reflecting the cultural importance of these elements. The intersection of culture and technology continues to influence how machine poetry evolves worldwide. Earlier approaches to computer poetry relied on combinatorics, mixing and matching words from a fixed set. This method, while creative, was limited by the programmer's choices and the constraints of the algorithm. Neural networks, however, have shifted the focus to systematic style reproduction. Instead of random combinations, these systems learn deep structural dependencies within language, producing poems that are less about chance and more about capturing the essence of the training material. This marks a significant leap in the sophistication of machine-generated poetry. As technology continues to advance, the boundaries between human and machine creativity are blurring. Machine poetry challenges our traditional ideas about authorship, meaning, and artistic value. What can neural networks teach us about the nature of poetry? And what does poetry generated by machines reveal about our own relationship with language and creativity? As we look to the future, one thing is clear. Machine poetry is not just a technical novelty, it's a new frontier in the evolving dialogue between humans and technology.